Hi everybody, Jane here, and I have been on a lot of writers' forums recently where people have been asking, can I write that? Whatever that might mean. And I decided I wanted to come on here and tell you all that yes, you can write that. Now, obviously we need some context here, but usually these forum posts don't have context either. So I'm going to give you the context of what I mean when I say yes, you can write that. If you were asking me, is there a market for something? That is a different question. Do your research. Most things have at least a niche market. There is dinosaur and Sasquatch porn. Okay, there just is, it exists. If that exists, there's probably a market for what you want to write, even if it's a small market. I would say make sure you're not breaking the terms of service of Amazon if you want to publish on Amazon. That would be the only time I would say maybe you shouldn't write that. So if you're wanting to write like an incestuous erotica, that breaks terms of service on Amazon, probably not what you're wanting to do. Now, if you're just trying to put it up on like a website for fun, you can absolutely write whatever you want. However, is there a market for this? Who knows? And that changes all the time. You might be the person that, writes the next Harry Potter and didn't know that it was going to take off before it did. We just don't know these things. So yes, you can write any story your heart wants to tell. Now, sometimes you will need to research that. If you're writing about characters who are different than yourself, that's another one that people say a lot. I'm a man. Can I write a woman character? Absolutely. However, you might want to have a woman read over your book after you're done to make sure that it sounds appropriate. And you can look and read in the genres that you're looking to read it or write in and see how things are handled. Sometimes being able to mimic what is done in a genre is more important than being able to have personal experience in it. So I write romance. And a lot of the male characters probably don't actually think like males in real life do. But they think like male romance heroes, and so they work. So in some cases, it's going to be less about being authentic. Does my character sound like a man? To does my character sound like a man in this genre? Certain things like writing LGBTQA+ characters, you need to look into and fact check things to decide what works and what doesn't. You may need to decide to look into, well, what does it mean to feel like you're in the wrong body? What does that mean on a physical level? What does that mean on an emotional level? You might need to read books by people who are trans. You might need to read Own Voices books before you try to write a character who is trans. But here's the thing too, every person's experience is different. And as long as you're giving an authentic human experience with the information that you have, you can do it. You can write about people who are in wheelchairs and the struggles that they face. And not every person and character is going to face the same struggle. One thing that I know Jojo Moyes got into a little bit of hot water with is there were a lot of people in the disabled community who were not happy with her representation that, who would want to live like this? That, her character in Me Before You clearly exudes or talks about. He doesn't want to live as a quadriplegic, but there are plenty of quadriplegics living full lives. There are some who are lawyers. There are some who are in all kinds of professions. It is not the end for a lot of people, and everybody chooses how they live their life differently. But at the same time, you can research and say, well, what are the problems and dilemmas that come with that? How do they experience things like going to the bathroom, sex, all these other things? You may have to do some research, but that doesn't mean you can't write those characters just because you have not personally experienced their situation. I would be a little bit cautious of what I write as far as if your book is to fight a fight for a certain group of people that you're not involved in, tread carefully. I am not African American, so while I would not have a problem writing an African American protagonist, it is probably not my place to write about the struggles that African Americans face that I can't understand because of my white privilege in the USA. Now, if you are really, really well versed in it and can write it accurately, do it. But there may be nuance to it that you don't understand. And if you're writing about people who you really, that it's important to get it right, you'll want to use beta readers from the group of people that you're writing about. People who will understand, sensitivity readers that can say, well, we don't call it that, or we don't do that, or, that's something that is offensive now, even though you may have read about it in a book written 5 or 10 years ago. Or most people don't really think that. There's a lot of misinformation on the internet and in the news, or you have people who, a small minority, think this is what this means, or this is how we do things, and then the majority doesn't necessarily agree. So I would approach cautiously. I don't think there's anything wrong with writing characters who are different than yourselves. I do think it's important to do it tactfully and fully researched. And I don't think there's any subject matter that you can't write about. I think you can write about anything you want. You just may have to do some research. You just may have to make some phone calls and have people who are more educated than you on a topic determine if you've made any mistakes, if you're wanting authenticity. So the answer of, can I write that? Yes. Is there a market for it? Who knows? Maybe, sometimes, and maybe not. And if you're trying to make money with it and you can't put it up on Amazon because of terms of service, maybe that's not the right story to write, but you are probably capable of writing it. And maybe you're not capable of writing it today. I know some of my stories I've had to put aside until I was a better writer. So if you're really questioning, can I write this thing? Not because you're worried about offending anybody, but because it's big and it's scary. Write small first. Write small things and work your way up to it. Maybe the 200,000 word dystopian fantasy isn't what you need to write as your first book. But that doesn't mean you can't ever write it. And maybe you can write it now and just clean it up and edit it later. But it's important to you as a writer to understand that you can write whatever you want. That's how this works. Now, there may be laws in your specific country that limit what you can write and what is protected under freedom of speech. And in that case, you might want to consult a lawyer. If you're worried that what you're writing is illegal, then I would consult a lawyer. Anything beyond is this illegal? Yes, you can write it. Do research, get good beta readers, write your story, and the worst that can happen is you get some pushback from the people that you're writing about who say you misrepresented us. And the reality is every character is different and every person is different. And if you create a believable story, you can make a character who has any ideas. It's being a writer. And I see this posted so often and I just shake my head because I just want to yell at people. Yes, you can write that. You can write anything. You can write a romance in Omniscient. May not be a market for it, but you can write anything. You can write dual first-person perspectives. You have to do it the right way and give people distinct voices for it to be good, but that can be done, and it is done. You can write a book in multiple perspectives. You can write a book in second person. You can do almost anything you want with writing. It is a creative art. Now, whether you'll be able to sell it, that's another question. But there's a lot of people who are following all the rules and can't sell their work. But if the question is, can I write this? Yes, I give you permission to write it. As long as it's not against the law where you live, I give you permission to write it. You can write it well, you can write it badly, but get it written. All right, guys, this is Jane. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.